discovered the incredible kindness of a maid who rescued a millionaire's life from heartbreak. Clara's hands scrubbed furiously at the polished kitchen countertops of Ethan's sprawling mansion. She took pride in her work, the sweat on her brow a testament to her determination. But as she dusted the ornate shelves, it wasn't just the shine she was after. It was hope. Hope for her 2 kids and the chance to keep their tiny home. The bills piled up. The eviction notice loomed like a dark cloud. She could almost feel the weight of despair pressing down on her. Then there was Ethan, the wealthy tech billionaire, recently divorced and navigating the turbulence of heartbreak. She could see it in the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes, the emptiness they masked. Her keen sense for human emotion, honed through her own struggles, sensed the bottles of whiskey tucked away in one corner, the refuge of a man drowning in sorrow. "Hey, I came across this beautiful book on relationships," Clara ventured one day, breaking the oppressive silence, her voice soft as she turned the last corner of the grand kitchen. "It talks about the importance of real connections, not just flashes of wealth." She watched Ethan's face flicker, the guard he held up for so long beginning to crack. He caught her eye, and in that moment, she felt an undeniable link even with the gulf of their circumstances yawning open. He was richer than she could ever dream, but in his isolation, he was achingly familiar. "Oh, really?" he replied, a half-hearted smile wavering. "I could use a good read." Clara's heart ached to connect with him. Time passed, and their conversations grew deeper, filled with shared moments of vulnerability. She recounted her escape from her own toxic relationship, her voice breaking slightly as she spoke of the nights spent fighting against nightmares for the sake of her children. He listened, and she saw understanding dance in the depths of his eyes. "The American dream originally felt like a distant echo to me," she confessed one day. "Sometimes it feels just like that." "A dream? Is it just a dream?" Ethan asked, pondering his own recent life choices. He was surrounded by luxury, yet somehow, he felt more poor than ever with every sip of whiskey. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Their worlds collided, creating a tension only they could sense. Clara found herself catching glimpses of her own pain mirrored in his. The anonymity of it struck her with unexpected, fierce clarity. But the impending eviction haunted her thoughts, the time bomb quietly ticking down in the corner of her mind. As she finally dared to look Ethan in the eyes with tears forming, she felt a crack in her soul. "I need help," she whispered, the words tumbling out like a tide. Vulnerability poured through her, unclaimed pride wavering in the balance, a turning point. "I'm terrified of what's coming for my kids." In that moment, the rich expanse of his home and her modest life fused into the same space. Old walls between them fizzled into dust. Clara saw hope gleam in Ethan's expression, as if a light began to flicker in the dark. Maybe true connection can break us from these chains," he murmured, but uncertainty hung thick in the air. Would their worlds ever merge, or would she have to endure her struggles alone? Ethan's gaze softened as he held Clara's eyes, and for a moment, time stood still in the sunlit kitchen. The once cavernous gap between them felt a little less daunting, but the bittersweet reality of their respective lives loomed over that fragile connection like storm clouds ready to burst. He had wealth, but she had resilience, a hardiness forged in the fires of survival. As they both stood, etched in vulnerability, a single question hung heavy in the air. "How can I help you?" he asked, the sincerity palpable in his voice. Clara blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "Help?" The weight of that word twisted her stomach in knots. She had spent so long battling her demons alone, had learned to stand on her own through every challenge. And here was this man, a beacon of hope, asking how he could give her something she felt she had no right to accept. With a shaky breath, she said, "I need work, beyond just cleaning. I want to show you I'm capable. I want to do more." Her pulse quickened. This wasn't just about her anymore. Her hunger for a better future surged with a deeper motive. I want to build a life for my kids. Ethan nodded, absorbing her words. You're more than a housekeeper to me, Clara. You give me something I didn't know I needed. He paused, searching for the right words. You remind me what it means to be human. His response stirred something deep in her, a mix of hope and fear. They were both fragile in their own ways, standing at the edge of vulnerability like two tightrope walkers straining to keep their balance. Clara found herself smiling through the tears that threatened to spill over. I just don't want to fail them, she managed to say. Being a single mother it's harder than it sounds. I believe in you, Ethan said simply, words filled with a conviction she and T expected. Let us start with something small. How about a project together? Her heart raced. There was a flicker of excitement in the corners of her mind. What sort of project? A community center. A place for kids and families to gather. I've thought about it since my divorce. Ethan's eyes lit up, and for once the shadows lingered less in them. Something that brings people together, that gives back what we've both lost. Clara could hardly breathe. The enormity of his suggestion washed over her, a chance to do something tangible, something meaningful. Not just for herself, but for others, too. Are you serious? Absolutely. We can brainstorm ideas, figure out what's needed. Tears slipped down Clara's cheeks, but this time they were different. They felt like the first drops of rain after a long drought. Thank you, she whispered, overwhelmed by the support, a sensation so foreign, yet pressing against her barrier of pride that in that moment. Hope twisted through her heart, knitting with determination. They were two unlikely allies, wounded healers seeking to rebuild what had been lost. As they stood together, the world outside that kitchen seemed to fade away. The pain seemed to lift ever so slightly. But as dawn broke on this new possibility, Clara knew they would have to face their pasts, their insecurities. Mostly, they would have to confront the whispers of fear that threatened to hold them back. But Clara's heart pounded at the thought. What if they stumbled? What if the project crumbled before it began? Ethan, she began hesitantly, a thought stirring at the back of her mind. Do you think we can really pull this off? Ethan turned serious, his expression firm. We won't know unless we try. But together, I believe we can start something beautiful. As they shared a moment of understanding, Clara felt a warmth in her chest. Would this collaboration lead to something transformational for both of them, or would unseen challenges tear them apart? The question lingered as they stepped into the depths of uncertainty, ready to turn the page on their intertwined stories, together. Clara awoke the next morning with renewed determination. Sunlight filtered through her kitchen window, casting a soft glow on the worn countertops. The little details of her small world felt different today. Everything seemed to hum with possibility. She could hardly believe how much she'd opened her heart to Ethan. Before the kids stirred, Clara grabbed a notebook she had tucked away under a pile of old bills. Flipping to a blank page, she began to jot down ideas for the community center. She wrote about art classes and after-school tutoring, sports leagues for the kids, and a place where parents could come together to share their stories. Each stroke of the pen felt like a step toward weaving a new future. As the morning wore on, her children bounded into the kitchen, excitement bubbling over like the morning coffee. Their laughter warmed her heart and reminded her why she was trying so hard. Jacob, her youngest, tugged at her sleeve. Mom, can we go play at the park today? Of course, sweetheart. But first, I need to talk to you both about something important, Clara said, her voice steadying. She knelt to meet their curious faces. I'm going to be working on a new project, something that can help our community. I want your help with ideas. They listened intently, eyes wide, as she shared her vision of creating a bright space filled with joy and connection. Clara could see the spark of excitement ignite in them. They were her support, as much as she was theirs. Soon after they finished breakfast, Clara headed to Ethan's house. The thought of presenting her ideas felt both exhilarating and terrifying. She couldn't shake the feelings of doubt that crept in as she walked. What if he didn't like the ideas? What if he thought they were foolish? As she approached the door, she noticed a pile of construction materials stacked against one wall, the foundation of their dreams beginning to materialize even before they had a formal plan. Ethan answered the door with his usual warm smile, but it faltered slightly when he noticed her anxious expression. Hey, are you okay? He asked, concern lacing his voice. I am. I'm excited but also scared. I've never done something like this, Clara admitted, fidgeting with the notebook in her hands. "It's normal to feel that way," Ethan reassured her. "It means you care. Why don't we go over your ideas?" They settled into his spacious living room, sunlight streaming through the windows. Clara laid out her notes, and with each idea she shared, Ethan's enthusiasm visibly grew. "These are incredible," he said, nodding vigorously. "We can start planning a meeting to gather community feedback." They'll love this. As they talked, Clara felt the shadows of her fears begin to dissolve. There was a lightness in the air, a sense of partnership blooming between them. The conversation fluttered from practical details to intangible hopes, weaving an unexpected bond. But just when hope soared highest, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. Both Clara and Ethan froze, instinctively moving towards the sound. "Stay here," Ethan called, his voice sharp with urgency. Clara's heart raced as they hurried to the kitchen. The chaos before them was overwhelming. A massive box had toppled over, and glass shards sparkled dangerously on the floor. Clara's breath hitched at the thought of her children, her mind frantically replaying the earlier morning. "Ethan, my kids," she gasped, the familiar panic tightening around her heart as she dashed for the door. What had the day unleashed? Ethan's expression mirrored her own alarm, fear igniting his eyes. "Clara, wait. They're okay," he shouted after her. But she was already out the door, propelled by a primal instinct to protect her children. With each pounding step toward home, a new layer of uncertainty washed over her. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find joy or heartache waiting? She had stepped into the unknown before, but now, everything felt different. The question loomed large in her mind. Would their dream begin to unravel before it even took shape? Clara reached her front door, her heart pounding in her chest. The world around her blurred, the rush of footsteps blocking out everything else. With a desperate twist of her hand, she flung the door open. The scene inside struck her with a mix of relief and dread. Jacob and Lily were standing by the kitchen table, staring wide-eyed at the glittering shards scattered across the floor. Clara breathed a sigh of relief. They were unharmed, but the question still lingered: how had this happened? "Mom!" Jacob shouted, his voice trembling. The box fell. It was heavy and it just shattered. Lily pointed at the mess, her small finger quivering. "I tried to catch it," she said, red tiles reflecting her rush of emotion, partially inspired by concern and partially by the thrill of mischief. "Oh, sweetheart, you shouldn't have," Clara exclaimed, crossing the room in a heartbeat, her protective instincts kicking in. "You could have been hurt. I'm just glad you're both okay." She knelt down, inspecting the glimmering shards that lay dangerously close to their little feet. Ethan appeared behind her, concern written across his face. "Is everyone all right?" He stepped over the broken box, expertly navigating the sharp edges, extending a reassuring hand to Clara. "Yes, they're fine," Clara replied softly, still shaken. But in that moment, the weight of knowledge began to settle on her. They were fine, and she had stepped into that room just in time. "I need everyone to step back, okay? Let us clean this up together." Lily stepped into her mother's embrace, while Jacob moved forward, eager to help. His bravery shone through even in his small frame. Clara felt a pride swell in her chest as she gathered the dustpan and broom. Each second of calm movement eased the pounding in her heart. "Let me help, Clara," Ethan said, his voice steady. "I can take care of the glass." She shot him a grateful glance, heart swelling at the gesture. As he crouched beside her, their fingers brushed against each other as they both reached for the same shard. A spark passed between them, and for a moment, the chaos faded into soft silence, their connection momentarily grounding her. "I didn't mean to frighten you," Clara said finally, breaking away from that fleeting moment. "It's just, I want to make sure you're safe." Ethan nodded, his gaze steady. "I understand. Safety is key, especially with kids involved." They worked together, clearing away the remnants of the broken box. With each piece they collected, Clara felt the tension slip from her shoulders. Eventually, the kitchen returned to normalcy, but the earlier fears still lingered like shadows. Once the final shard was safely discarded, the kids were back to their playful laughter, excitement slowly resuming as they ventured outside. Clara watched them chase each other like the sun chasing the clouds. Somehow, this moment, fragile and real, hinted that hope still flickered. Ethan turned to her, a smile playing on his lips. This community project, it's going to bring people together, isn't it? And not just the kids, but all of us. Yes, Clara breathed, looking up at him. I truly believe that. But beneath her rising hope lay an unease that clung to her ribs like a weight. The louder their laughter grew, the more Clara felt that while they were building a dream, layers of vulnerability surrounded it. What if it couldn't withstand the pressures of the past they carried? And just like that, the thought slammed into her. What if her past would catch up with her once she began to open her heart fully? Clara? Ethan's voice broke in, gently bringing her back. Everything all right? She nodded, although doubt lingered. She started, but silence hung in the space, heavy with questions. The connection between them was strong, but with it came the risk of exposing heartache and fear. As they stepped outside to join the children, the sun seemed to shine brighter, bathing them in a golden light. Clara's heart pounded in her chest, a reminder of the new paths forming under her feet, yet shadows loomed over those paths. What hidden truths would surface as they ventured deeper into their dreams? Would they be able to navigate the complexities of their pasts while trying to build a hopeful future? The delicate balance of hope and worry lingered in Clara's mind. Only time would reveal if their fragile dream could withstand the heavy winds that threatened to disrupt them. Clara stood in the yard, warmth enveloping her as she watched Jacob and Lily play. Their laughter floated through the air, a sweet sound that reminded her of simpler times, and yet it was tinged with uncertainty. She squeezed her eyes shut for a brief moment, willing away the dark clouds looming in her mind. Ethan moved closer, joining her on the porch. They seem happy, he said, nodding toward the children. Clara forced a smile, but inside, her heart quivered. Yes, they do, but I can't help feeling worried about everything. What do you mean? Ethan asked, his brow furrowing in concern. She hesitated, words swirling in her head. How could she explain the heaviness in her chest? The times she turned her back on love, scared it would slip away like sand through her fingers? Sometimes, I feel like the past is like a ghost following me. I want to embrace this new beginning, but what if it all falls apart? Ethan's eyes softened. I get that, but you can't let fear dictate your life. Every day is a chance to build something beautiful, even if it's imperfect. His words hung in the air, mixing with the laughter of the kids, and Clara felt a flicker of hope ignite in her chest. They stayed side by side, watching the children tumble and fall, the bright colors of their clothes smudged with dirt, but it didn't seem to matter. They were happy, alive in each moment they shared. Maybe you're right, she murmured, feeling lighter. But deep down, Clara still wondered if she had the strength to let go of her fears completely. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the yard, the kids returned, their cheeks flushed with excitement. Mom, can we have a picnic tomorrow? Jacob exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. A picnic? Clara echoed, caught off guard by the spontaneity of it. That sounds fun, but do you think we can invite more friends? Yeah, we can tell everyone at school. Lily chimed in, jumping around in delight. Ethan turned to her, a glint of mischief dancing in his eyes. Count me in. I'll bring the blankets and snacks. It was in that moment Clara realized how quickly they were becoming a little family, stitched together by laughter and shared experiences. Still, her heart ached at the thought of what lay ahead. Would their bond withstand the test of time, or would it crumble under the weight of unspoken truths? Clara caught Ethan's gaze, and for a moment, the air between them charged with something deeper, a mix of friendship, hope, and the unacknowledged feelings that were beginning to bloom. Thank you for being here, she said softly, her voice almost lost in the twilight. Always, he replied, the sincerity in his tone wrapping around her heart like a warm embrace. That night, as Clara tucked the kids into bed, she felt a sense of peace wrapping around her like a blanket. But as she lay down herself, the question crept back in. What would happen when the picnic came? Would their new beginnings unravel old secrets? She closed her eyes, determination firming in her chest. Clara knew she needed to face whatever fears awaited her, but the idea dared to frighten her all over again. Would she be ready? Tomorrow was just a picnic, but it felt like the edge of something monumental, a movement toward the unknown. She drifted off to sleep, the dreams swirling with laughter, warmth, and uncharted lands, each moment painted with the hope of a new tomorrow. What would the picnic reveal about their connections, fears, and perhaps hidden affections. Would it truly mark the start of their journey together, or would past shadows threaten to rise again? Morning light poured in through Clara's bedroom window, illuminating the fragments of a dream that had just begun to slip away. She blinked, heart racing with the memories of laughter and shimmering possibilities. Today would be different. The picnic wasn't just a simple gathering. It felt like a reset button, a chance to rebuild not only her story, but also the one unfolding with Ethan and the kids. After getting the children ready, Clara hustled to the kitchen, her mind racing. She had a list that grew longer by the second: sandwiches, juice boxes, chips, and somehow, dessert. As Jacob and Lily filled the living room with shouts of joy, Clara could scarcely believe how fast this day had come. "Mom, can we help?" Jacob called from the doorway, his hands cupped around his mouth. "Of course. You can set the picnic table," she replied, her voice laced with excitement. Moments like this made her feel like the world was shifting towards something wonderful. Ethan arrived just as Clara was spreading a blanket across the dining room table for a practice run. "Looks good," he exclaimed, placing a basket full of snacks beside her. The closeness felt electric, a pulse that throbbed in the space between them. Together, they orchestrated the feast, laughter bubbling up like the fresh lemonade Clara had made that morning. Clearing the table with the kids became a game as they raced to see who could carry the most cups, each tiny victory celebrated with giggles and playful banter. Once everything was packed, Clara stepped outside, savoring the fresh air against her skin. The sun sparkled, dancing through the branches of the trees. She felt weightless for a moment, until the self-doubt crept in again. When would she truly be ready to embrace this chance at happiness? "Hey," Ethan's voice cut through her thoughts. "You okay?" She turned to him, her heart fluttering at the concern in his gaze. "Just thinking about everything. What if it doesn't go as planned? Then we make the best of it," he offered, his tone steady. "No one's looking for perfection, Clara. Just moments. Trust that." His words settled like raindrops on dry earth, nourishing the fragile hopes she had nurtured in secret. She nodded, a smile igniting on her face. They piled into the car, Jacob and Lily bubbling with excitement in the back seat, and Clara felt a tenderness swell in her chest. The park was alive with families' laughter, music, and the smell of barbecue filled the air. As they set up the picnic, more children began to arrive, familiar faces from school, some she recognized from the neighborhood. Clara's heart danced in harmony with the atmosphere. Anticipation thrummed through her veins. "Mom, look over there." Lily pointed to a group of kids playing tag. Clara watched her daughter join in, a burst of joy mingling with the sunshine around them. As the hours drew closer to the afternoon, Ethan caught Clara's eye again, his gaze deepening. "Want to take a walk?" "Sure," she replied, heart fluttering. They strolled toward the edge of the park, where the trees thinned and a gentle breeze swept through. "It's nice out here," Ethan said, glancing down at her, his voice mellow. "Feels like anything is possible." Clara wrapped her arms around herself as the weight of vulnerability settled in. "I want this to be real, Ethan. But I'm scared." "Of what?" he prompted gently, stopping to face her. "Of losing us." His expression softened. "You want to lose me, Clara. But if we don't take these risks, we'll never find out what could be." Before she could reply, laughter erupted from behind them, reeling them back into the excitement. Their moment hung in the air, taut and inviting. Clara could feel that something was shifting. As they headed back, a familiar coldness crept in, a whisper of past heartbreak reminding her that while hope was budding, shadows lurked nearby. But perhaps they were simply part of the journey, and as the sun dipped low in the sky, Clara understood they were on the verge of something significant. Would today be the turning point she needed, or just another stop along her winding path? What if love was waiting in the unspoken words shared between them, ready to be discovered? As Clara and Ethan walked back towards the picnic area, laughter and cheers surrounded them, weaving a tapestry of childhood joy that warmed Clara's heart. The sight of Jacob and Lily racing across the grassy field, arms flailing as they played tag, filled her with an undeniable lightness. She turned to Ethan, a smile creeping across her face as she watched him glance at the kids with that familiar warmth. "See, they're having the time of their lives," Clara said, her voice lifted with hope. Ethan chuckled softly. "And so are we, right?" "Right," Clara agreed. Though a flicker of uncertainty still danced on the edges of her thoughts, they returned to the blanket, where Jacob was busy serving juice to a cluster of kids, his small frame brimming with confidence. Lily lay sprawled on the grass, her golden curls catching the sun, her laughter bright and carefree. Watching them, Clara felt a swell of gratitude. This moment, chaotic yet beautiful, was a gift. Just then, a group of mothers approached, bringing with them an air of familiarity and comfort. Clara felt a gentle push of reluctance, her old insecurities stirring within, but Ethan's hand brushed against hers, a silent reassurance that was impossible to ignore. "Clara, you made it," one of the women exclaimed, pulling her into a warm embrace. It was Christine, the bubbly mom from Jacob's baseball team. "Of course. We wouldn't miss it," Clara responded, her smile widening as the women chatted, sharing parenting stories and laughter. Clara relaxed a little, the weight of her fears slipping away. She became absorbed in their conversations, feeling the threads of connection weaving around her. But as the talks turned to the struggles of daily life, her thoughts spun deeper. Were her challenges truly over? Would she fit into this new life? Meanwhile, Ethan had engaged Jacob, showing him how to throw a frisbee. Clara glanced over and saw his face illuminate with pride, the same pride she felt just a moment before. That joy was infectious, and she felt a laugh bubble up inside her. The sun began to lower, casting warm hues across the park, and just as Clara joined the kids for a game, she caught a glimpse of something in Ethan's eyes. It was a mix of admiration and hope that sent a thrill through her. Suddenly, the laughter faded into a hushed whisper as Clara locked eyes with him, both of them momentarily suspended in the moment. But then, the applause of rows of children filled the air. They had formed teams for an impromptu game of soccer, and it wasn't long before Jacob and Lily dragged her into the fun. As she chased after them, elation washed over her. Perhaps today wasn't about facing fears, but rather about embracing life as it came. The game was wild and frenzied, each kick and dash creating memories on that beautiful day. Clara felt as if she were finally letting the spontaneous energy of the moment consume her. Yet still, the flicker of worry remained deep within, nagging at her to remind her of the past. As twilight approached, Clara and Ethan found themselves alone again, the kids off playing with their new friends. They sat on the blanket, side by side, buckets of laughter still echoing in the distance. "Today was amazing," Ethan said, leaning back on his hands. "Yeah, it really was," she replied, her heart racing anew. But then fear flickered through her like an unwelcome gust of wind. "But what if what?" he prompted. "What if things change? What if happiness is just a fleeting moment?" Ethan took a breath, his expression growing serious. "Clara, life is change. But it doesn't mean it has to be bad. Sometimes you have to take that leap and hope to land on something solid." She faced him, their proximity inviting vulnerability. "What if we fall again?" His gaze softened. "Then we pick each other up." In that moment, Clara sensed the connection, the widening chasm between fear and hope shrinking. Tension in her chest eased, but the question lingered like the soft glow of twilight. How far was she willing to leap? And as the first stars pierced the sky, Clara realized that discovering love meant opening her heart to vulnerability and transforming what-ifs into yes. Just then, a distant commotion caught her attention, and she turned towards it, unaware of the realization awaiting her. Would the secrets hiding in their pasts be uncovered tonight? And what could that mean for their tangled future? The distant commotion grew louder, pulling Clara from her thoughts. She stood up, curiosity tugging at her, urging her to investigate. Ethan followed her lead, his expression a mix of concern and intrigue. As they approached the source of the noise, Clara spotted a crowd gathered near the playground. A knot of anticipation formed in her stomach. The laughter, the playful shouts had morphed into a curious buzz that hinted at something more. "What is happening?" she asked a passing parent, who shrugged helplessly. The closer they drew, the more she could see the excitement rippling through the children's faces. Clara gripped Ethan's arm, her heart pounding. What if it was something serious? Then, just as they reached the edge of the group, a little voice broke through the murmurs. "I can do it. I can do it." Clara pushed her way gently to the front. What she saw took her breath away. Jacob stood at the bottom of the slide, his face determined. Nearby, Lily cheered him on, bouncing with contagious energy. But it was what lay ahead that struck Clara a bit harder, the tallest, steepest slide she had ever seen, looming against the fading light. "Come on, Jacob. You got this," Lily yelled, her confidence unwavering. Clara's heart hitched. She had seen Jacob hesitant before, always careful, always aware of the potential for danger. But now, it felt different. He was embracing a challenge, hoping to soar like the clouds above. "Go, buddy," Ethan encouraged, his voice brimming with pride. Every child in the semicircle held their breath, eyes glued to Jacob. He took a deep breath, his brows knitted together. Clara felt her own heart race. This wasn't he just about sliding down a playground fixture. In this moment, he was about to conquer fear. With a sprint, Jacob shot up the ladder, determination etched across his little face. Clara felt her muscles tense. Could he really do this? He reached the top and paused, glancing down at the ground several feet below him. Clara held her breath, a bead of sweat forming at her brow. She caught Ethan's eye. There was something unspoken between them, a blend of anxiety and pride. And then, with a deep exhale, Jacob took off. He zoomed down the slide, arms spread wide, whooping in utter exhilaration. Clara let out a cheer, her heart soaring as he landed on the ground with a thud and burst of laughter. "Did you see that?" Jacob radiated joy, running back to the bottom with a wide smile. "Yes, you did it. You really did it," Clara praised, ecstatic tears pricking at her eyes. Ethan pulled her close, his warmth enveloping her. "He is so brave," he said softly, admiration flooding his voice. Clara nodded, still buzzing with excitement. "Just like you," she whispered, thinking about how Ethan had encouraged her to leap, as Jacob had just done. But as the cheers and applause washed over them, Clara's mind raced. What did this mean? If Jacob was brave, did that mean she could be too? Suddenly, she felt a shift in the air, a deeper understanding rising within her. She wanted to be more than just the cautious observer. "Let us try it," Clara said impulsively, surprising even herself. Ethan raised an eyebrow, a playful grin breaking across his face. "You mean the slide?" "No, I mean everything. Let us embrace vulnerability," she declared, taking a step back from the crowd. Together, his hand slipped into hers, a silent agreement sparking between them. A wave of warmth rushed through her, igniting old hopes she thought had dimmed. Just then, above the rustle of trees, a chilling chill fell over the playful vibe. A voice broke through, a man's voice, loud and unmistakably familiar. It echoed against the laughter, pulling Clara's chest tight and sending her heart racing again. "Clara, we need to talk." She turned, her breath catching as she recognized the source of that commanding voice. What did he want? Suddenly, the weight of the past loomed larger than the thrill of the present. With Ethan beside her, she faced the confrontation. Would this be another challenge? One that could break their new bond, or perhaps strengthen it? In that moment, Clara realized the choices ahead were far from simple, but one thing remained clear. The past had a way of finding its way back. And now, she had to decide, was she ready to face it? Clara's heart raced as she scanned the crowd, searching for the face that belonged to that voice. The familiar figure loomed tall and imposing against the setting sun, cutting through the playful ambience like a knife. It was Mark, her estranged older brother, the one who had made the decision for her all those years ago. She hadn't seen him in what felt like ages, and the sight of him now stirred a whirlwind of emotions within her. "What does he want?" Clara whispered, her grip on Ethan's hand tightening. "He looks serious," Ethan noted, his brow furrowing, his eyes locked on Mark, who was making his way through the crowd. Clara willed herself to stay grounded. She felt a surge of defiance. Years had passed since their last confrontation, and she no longer felt like the scared little sister. With Ethan by her side, she drew in a breath and stepped forward. "Clara," Mark shouted again, striding closer, urgency in his tone. She could see the turmoil in his eyes, but the sight of him only fueled her apprehension. Would he try to manipulate her again? "Why are you here, Mark?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Ignoring her question, Mark focused his gaze on Jacob, who was still basking in the joy of his recent success. "I heard you were back in town. We need to talk about Mom not here," Clara interrupted, glancing nervously at the children around them. She didn't want to mar Jacob's moment of triumph with family drama. As Mark's frown deepened, Clara noticed Ethan's protective stance. It warmed her heart, but she also felt torn. Family was complicated. Her relationship with Mark had been rocky for years, and now he wanted to reopen old wounds in front of everyone. Mark's tone softened. Clara, I'm just trying to help. Mom isn't well. You know how she gets when enough. Clara blurted, feeling her pulse quicken. How could you even ask me that? You were the one who left. The words came out sharper than she intended, echoing the years of buried resentment. Mark took a step back, clearly stung. The confusion in his eyes made her heart twist. He had been her advocate once, the one who stepped in during her darkest times. And yet, that comfort felt so far away now. Just think about it, okay? Family sticks together, he said quietly, and it hit Clara like a wave. Family? She replied, her voice low but charged with emotion. You think family means ignoring pain? The crowd around them grew silent, the laughter and cheering of children fading into the background, replaced by the weight of their conversation. Ethan squeezed her hand tighter, attentively watching the exchange. Clara, he urged softly, let us take a step back from this. But she couldn't. She felt her resolve solidify. The fear Jacob had just conquered a moment ago pulsed in her veins. Maybe facing what she had been avoiding, the very complexities that made her who she was, could be her own slide down into the unknown. Mark, if you want to talk about Mom, let us do it. But not here. Not now, she finally said, determined to set boundaries where before there had been none. Relief washed over Ethan's face as Clara turned to him, the bond between them holding firm. But just as she was about to step away from the unfolding chaos, her phone buzzed sharply in her pocket, jolting her from the moment. Clara glanced down, expecting a mundane notification. Instead, she froze, her breath catching. When she read the message, her heart plummeted. It was a text from someone she had nearly forgotten, a name that pulled at the edges of hidden memories. Now, with everything suspended in the air, Clara had to decide not only how to approach her brother, but also whether to untangle the threads of her past once and for all. What would that mean for her newfound courage? And how far would she go to reclaim the pieces of a story she thought was closed? As the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving a trail of twilight, Clara stood on the precipice of a choice, one that could either bind her to the past or set her free. Clara stood resolute, her finger hovering over the phone screen, the weight of the moment crashing down around her. Ethan's presence grounded her amidst the chaos. She knew she had to confront her past, but how? The resolve she felt just moments ago flickered uncertainly like a flame caught in the wind. Clara, Ethan murmured softly, concern deepening in his gaze. She met his eyes, and the warmth of his support urged her forward, pushing through the fear that curled around her heart. What do I do? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Face it, but on your terms. You're stronger than you think, he replied, steady and unwavering. She swallowed hard, feeling the courage coiling within her like a spring. With a nod, Clara set the phone aside, putting it away for later. This was about her family, her messy, complicated family, but today, it couldn't derail her joy here. She took a deep breath, returning her focus to Mark, who stood expectantly, uncertainty etched in his features. Today isn't the time for old grudges, Clara began, her voice strong and steady. But we will talk, for Mom's sake. After the picnic, Mark's expression shifted, a mix of relief and apology. All right, Clara. Thank you. I just don't want you to turn your back on family, he said earnestly. You still don't quite understand, do you? Clara shot back, the heat rising in her chest. Family can't only be about blood, but about support, respect. I've spent years in your shadow. Those days are over. The crowd, all ears now, seemed to hold its breath at her sudden, fierce declaration. Ethan's hand squeezed hers tighter, and Clara drew strength from the warmth of that grip. Perhaps, for once, she could embrace the truth of her identity. She was not just the sister caught in her brother's shadow, but a mother, a woman with a vision and dreams. The laughter around them began to return, a soft hum in the background of the escalating tension, and it reminded Clara of what truly mattered. Turning her gaze back towards the playground, she caught sight of Jacob running towards her, his grin wide and heart open. Mom, did you see me? I was so fast, he exclaimed, shimmering joy radiating from him. I saw you. You were a superstar. Clara beamed, kneeling down to embrace him. That gleeful light, that simple moment, filled her chest with a surge of clarity. I love you, buddy, she whispered against his hair. I love you too, Mom. He replied, his gaze darting to Ethan momentarily before returning to her. Eager to rejoin the fun, Mark watched, something like realization dawning on his face. For a fleeting moment, Clara's heart softened, a shred of understanding passing between them, but it wasn't enough to erase the past. It's not just about you anymore, Mark, she said firmly, standing up straight. It's about my kids too. I won't let them grow up in the shadow of fears anymore. His gaze dropped, and she felt a pang, but it transformed into something deeper, a sense of freedom at last. All right, Clara, I'll respect that. Please let me know when you're ready to talk, he said softly, turning to walk away. Thank you, Clara called after him, the words bittersweet but vital. As he moved back into the throng of laughter and celebration, Clara felt lighter, like the weight of a mountain had lifted from her shoulders. Ethan stepped closer. You handled that beautifully. I'm proud of you. Thank you, Clara replied, her heart swelling. It took courage I didn't know I had. As the sun dipped below the horizon, coloring everything in a warm, ethereal glow, Jacob pulled Clara back to the group. Mom, let us play soccer. All right, let us go. She laughed, heart racing anew. Ethan stepped in, joining them, and Clara felt alive. They kicked the ball, laughter ringing out, and she caught fleeting glimpses of joy radiating from her children, the hope sparking between each pass and play. In that moment, they were a family, stitched together by love and laughter. As the twilight deepened, Clara dared to dream about what lay ahead. She and Ethan shared glances loaded with meaning, filled with unspoken hopes, for a future where love blossomed unashamedly. Among the laughter, she caught the twinkle of possibility. Maybe the picnic wasn't simply a showcase of family. It was an inauguration of their own journey, a mosaic of fear, vulnerability, hope, and connection. And as Jacob gleefully scored a goal, Clara realized something profound. This was her life unfolding, messy and chaotic, but also vibrant and teeming with potential. She took a breath, and with Ethan right there beside her, she knew she was ready to see where this new path led. In embracing vulnerability, she had shifted the narrative, and that was only the beginning. As the picnic began to wind down and sparkles of laughter floated in the air like fireflies, Clara felt gratitude bloom within her heart. She held on to that joy, knowing that she had finally begun to write her own story, a story of healing, love, and the radiant embrace of her own light. Now, it's your turn to get ready. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories filled with love and transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these heartfelt journeys. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. I want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. This is the moment to spread the love and inspiration.